Howdy, it's Ari with Land Insights, and in this video, we're going to go ahead and just compare the county level data to the zip code level data. We'll talk about different ways to utilize both, the point of both, and why each one's really useful in their own right for different purposes. So let's go ahead and just hop into a state. When we're looking at a state, of course, we'll want to filter for that state down below on our table. We have some data points selected on our tooltip, so you can go ahead and select the ones that are relevant to you, that you feel are useful for convincing yourself that you like a market. And we're going to start with the county data. Just looking at county data from this perspective, if we find a county that we tend to like, it's just going to be important that we're looking at data points, both acreage ranges and heat map data points that matter to us, right? So at this point, we know that we should be looking at an acreage band that we intend to go after. Or doing research on an acreage band that we would hope to go after. Initially, we might start around the whole county. Lewis County looks like it's doing very well here in Washington. So if we look at a data point that will help us understand, well, is it moving quickly? That's moving pretty well. Is it kind of comp heavy and have a lot of data? It looks like it does have quite a bit of comps. So this particular county in Washington seems to be doing very well. If you wanted to kind of look at the county in its entirety, you can come in here, take off the heat map overlay, and just kind of look at the terrain, get an idea for what you're working with. That's not always pertinent. Some places in Tennessee, maybe Georgia, maybe North Carolina, you might want to do this, but absolutely not a requirement to look at a county like this in any way, shape, or form. It's completely preferential. And then once you have a good idea of what you're looking at, you can do a couple things. You can analyze this county from the data points you have selected in a broad way. You can actually drill down even further to certain acreage bands and try and analyze whether or not it's worth targeting these little acreage bands as well. I tend to do just a quick glance at each acreage band if I really want to focus on this county and determine whether or not it's worth my time. Then once I've determined it's worth my time, I'll add that to my markets and campaigns. They get added to both of those tabs I just mentioned at the same time. And so once I've added that county, it's just a matter of going to those other tabs and doing some further review if I'd like. There's plenty of investors who stop here and kind of go county-wide, but there's also benefit in bringing this down to the zip code level. Before we go there, just some other useful tips when we're on the county-wide perspective. In the My Markets area, if we've added this county should show up for us to use or to look at. And the nice thing here is we're only looking at whatever we've added to our My Markets. In this case, what I might do is drill down a little bit further into the acreage ranges. And when I'm doing that, it's very beneficial to leverage other tooltip data points. So we just went through the data points on this tooltip and what might be useful. Something that I might look at is maybe median price over a time frame. I'm seeing if that's increased or decreased. Maybe even looking at median price per acre and comparing that to the sold, the active, and comparing those together to see whether or not that price per acre holds true from the 5 to 10 acre range. So you can start to get an idea county-wide for this acreage range, whether or not it holds up to your standards and continues to perform. Now, there's also leverage that you can kind of glean from this tooltip, and that's going to be on the zip code level. So once we've determined that we like this county, if we're stopping there, if we're not doing a zip code analysis, then you can shoot out a mailer for this particular maybe acreage range and the particular county. But there are a lot of investors who also will take this and say, well, that's not enough for me in particular. I want to analyze this from the perspective of the zip codes as well. And that might include looking at a little bit more refined data sets. What I mean by that is first we'll want to kind of bring this back to the view that we had. We're going to look at 5 to 100 acres. We're also going to look at, let's just say, sold comps in this instance. But again, sell-through rate may also be very beneficial, just depending on what data set I'm looking at. I'm going to then, once I know that I like this county, I'm going to filter for it. Okay, once I'm here, I want to move to the zip code level. Any filters that we had other than obviously the state and the county will be removed. But now we're looking at the zip codes. Now you'll notice I'm still on a 5 to 100 acre range. So I'm looking at these zip codes individually in their entirety. But if you do want to analyze these, uh, acreage range by acreage range, this is where you can really refine your market research and just look at the data within one zip code at a time for all of its value. Now, this zip code in particular is quite large, 98532, and it kind of spans a ton of real estate. I would not suggest just outright making a decision uh, on this zip code by looking at the data on your tooltip. Now, it's super supportive of a good mailer, right? Of a solid market, and our data points are screaming that this is fine to target in terms of a zip code. I will say when you're looking at zip code data, you need to be a little bit more lenient on those zip codes. We're dealing with less data per zip code than we would be if we're looking at an entire county. And you have to also understand that counties are made up of multiple zip codes. Some of those zip codes kind of split that county in half in different random ways, as you can see here. And because of that, you might have comps in and across the county that don't make it into one zip code. And so that's why you'll see some of these zip codes just have a lot active, no solds. You'll see this one has no actives and hardly any solds. And so it's very important to analyze if you're using the zip code data to analyze at the uh, analyze the comp data, right? And use that. So from 2 to 5 acres, I might never find myself in 98533, even if I am marketing to Lewis County. You'll notice also if there are any blank areas where they're not heat mapped at all, it's namely because there's no data to work off of. So you might be able to pull up the tooltip and see that there's just nothing happening here. And because of that, we're probably going to stay clear. If we move to other acreage ranges, we can also leverage price per acre data. So, 2 to 5 is a good example. If I move over to 5 to 10 and I'm at the zip code level, just take a moment for this to load. And once I'm here, I'm just doing the same analysis, validating. Do these zip codes, uh, you know, do they hit the mark? Do they really perform well when I'm looking at them individually? Now, another thing to notice, I mentioned this just a second ago, but the zip code data you'll need to be a little bit more lenient on because now you're not looking at an entire county. Now, of course, if you do see great numbers in a county, in a zip code, and it's because there's a ton of comps, then you should be fine. But as we see smaller data sets in these zip codes, and these zip codes are moderately sized. This probably is not the best example of a moderately sized zip code, but as we do see those refined data sets, it's more reasonable to see lower sell-through rate or lower comps. Sell-through rate should remain relatively stable, and we can still use that likely at our normal percentages. It's just a matter of making sure that we have enough comps to validate an offer if we get a lead here, right? So in this particular zip code, it looks like 5 to 10 acres is doing wonderful. You'll see that the median price is fairly high, and the price per acre is fairly high, supporting that. So this particular county we might do well in. The last thing we'll want to do is just make sure that we're targeting the data from the zip code that we find the most valuable. That might be the 5 to 10 acre range, but it also might be all of the data in that zip code. And if it's performing well across the board, I would have no hesitation in just saying, hey, I want that data. I'm not going to focus on any further analysis. It's just going to come down to what you as a team or as a solo entrepreneur find the most beneficial for your business and for your marketing. Now, I did this light analysis here on the market research map, but oftentimes I'll actually find myself coming down here, adding these zip codes as I see fit, and I'll actually do this analysis on our My Markets map. So I'm going to come down here, add some of my favorite markets, and then we'll go ahead and move over to My Markets and do a quick review of the difference between market research and My Markets when looking at zip code data. All right, now that we're in our My Markets, one thing you'll need to do before hopping into that zip code data is toggling that data on. you'll notice that this data is currently being heat mapped against one another for multiple things, right? We're looking at the acreage range of 0.2 to 100 and the heat map of active properties. So don't be frightened when you see this, especially if you've already filtered for it. Then you will want to just readjust these as you kind of target specific properties or maybe specific acreage sizes, and we can start using this for different levels of analysis. Now we already know that we liked the comps, we liked the sell-through rate. So using other data points to maybe heat map and prioritize our marketing could be more valuable, right? If we're using days on market, we can prioritize by how quick we feel the market's moving or how long properties tend to sit. We can also start looking at price per acre data or even Gini, right? And if we know that it's easier to price in one zip code over another, it may affect how quickly we market to one zip code versus another, even if we previously thought it was good. Don't forget, this is a chance to continue drilling deep into certain acreage ranges. This is going to become more and more useful as you create an SOP around your market research. I wouldn't say that every day you casually come in here and stumble around trying to look for value. And that's a very dangerous way to lose time on your calendar and spend an odd amount of time looking for new markets when there's plenty of data to use for your marketing. Okay, that is the county data versus the zip code data and the different ways you can leverage it. As we continue to see this data improve over time, as the market improves, just keep an eye out for the ways you can leverage zip code data, because this is great from a price perspective and understanding the amounts of market value that we're seeing in certain areas, and it's super useful from a volume perspective, as we can come over here and look at the county and just move forward pretty confidently that the entire county is doing well. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at hello@landinsights.co, or you can always reach us at the bottom right of